What would it be like to stand on a mountain and hear the voice of God? Imagine thunder shaking the sky, fire blazing on the summit, and a nation waiting below while one man meets with the Lord face to face. Welcome to Quote in Scripture, Scripture that inspires, quotes that uplift. Today, we'll reflect on Moses on Mount Sinai, a powerful reminder of God's truth and presence. After leading Israel out of slavery in Egypt, Moses guided the people through the wilderness toward the land God had promised them. Their journey brought them to the foot of a towering mountain known as Mount Sinai. This place would become one of the most important moments in the history of God's people. The nation of Israel camped at the base of the mountain. God had already shown His power through miracles in Egypt and by parting the Red Sea. Yet now He was about to reveal something even greater. He would establish a covenant with His people and give them the law that would guide their lives. God called Moses to come up the mountain. As he climbed toward the summit, the mountain was covered with a thick cloud. Thunder rolled across the sky, lightning flashed, and the sound of a trumpet grew louder and louder. The people below trembled with fear because the presence of the Lord had descended upon the mountain in fire. From the mountain, God spoke to Moses and gave the commandments that would shape the moral and spiritual life of the nation. These commands revealed God's holiness and His desire for His people to live in righteousness. Among these instructions were the 10 Commandments, recorded in Book of Exodus 20. They called the people to worship the Lord alone, to honor His name, to keep the Sabbath, to respect parents, and to live with honesty, purity, and love toward others. These commandments were not given to burden the people, but to guide them. They showed Israel how to live as a nation set apart for God. Through obedience, they would reflect His character to the world. While Moses remained on the mountain, the people waited below. Days passed, then weeks. Moses spent 40 days and 40 nights in the presence of God. During that time, the Lord gave detailed instructions about worship, sacrifice, and the construction of the tabernacle where God's presence would dwell among His people. God also gave Moses 2 stone tablets on which the commandments were written by the finger of God. These tablets represented the covenant between the Lord and Israel. But while Moses was still on the mountain, something troubling happened in the camp below. The people grew impatient and uncertain. They wondered if Moses would ever return. Fear and doubt began to spread among them. Instead of trusting God, they turned to Aaron and asked him to make a god they could see. Aaron gathered their gold and fashioned it into a golden calf. The people began to worship the idol, saying it was the God who brought them out of Egypt. This act of rebellion deeply grieved the Lord. While Moses had been meeting with God on the mountain, the people had quickly turned away from Him. Their impatience revealed how easily human hearts can drift from faith when trust fades. God told Moses what was happening below. When Moses came down the mountain and saw the people dancing around the golden calf, his heart burned with anger and sorrow. The sacred covenant God had just given was already being broken. In his anger, Moses threw down the stone tablets, and they shattered at the foot of the mountain. The breaking of the tablets symbolized the broken relationship between God and His people. Yet even in this moment of failure, Moses showed remarkable leadership and compassion. Instead of abandoning the people, he interceded for them before the Lord. Moses prayed that God would show mercy and not destroy the nation. Because of Moses' intercession, God showed grace. Though the people faced consequences for their sin, the Lord did not abandon them. Instead, He renewed His covenant with Israel and continued to guide them on their journey. Later, Moses returned to the mountain once again. God instructed him to prepare new stone tablets, and the commandments were written again. This moment demonstrated both the holiness of God and His willingness to forgive. When Moses came down from the mountain after meeting with God, something remarkable had happened. His face shone with a radiant glow because he had been in the presence of the Lord. The people were afraid to come near him because the brightness reflected the glory of God. Because of this, Moses placed a veil over his face when speaking to the people. Yet whenever he went into the presence of the Lord, the veil was removed. This moment showed how deeply the encounter with God had transformed him. The events on Mount Sinai reveal several powerful truths about God and his relationship with his people. First, they show that God is holy. The thunder, fire, and trembling mountain reminded Israel that the Lord is not like the false gods of the nations. He is majestic, powerful, and worthy of reverence. Second, they show that God desires a relationship with his people. The covenant and commandments were given not to create distance, but to guide Israel into a life that reflected his character. Third, they show the danger of impatience and idolatry. The golden calf revealed how quickly people can turn away when they focus on what they can see, rather than trusting the unseen God. Fourth, they show the importance of intercession. Moses stood between God and the people, pleading for mercy on their behalf. His actions foreshadowed the greater mediator who would come in the future. That mediator is Jesus Christ. Just as Moses interceded for Israel, Jesus stands as the perfect mediator between God and humanity. Through him, believers receive forgiveness, grace, and a restored relationship with God. The story of Moses on Mount Sinai reminds us that encountering God changes a person. Moses went up the mountain as a servant, but he came down transformed by the glory of God. It also reminds us that God's commands are given out of love. They guide us away from harm and lead us toward a life that honors him. And finally, this story reminds us that even when people fail, God's mercy is greater than human weakness. The same God who gave the law also showed compassion when his people turned back to him. Just as Israel stood at the foot of the mountain, every believer today faces a choice. We can follow God with trust and obedience, or we can turn toward the distractions and idols of the world. The story of Mount Sinai calls us to remember who God is and to respond with faith, reverence, and commitment. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain. Book of Exodus 19:20. Thank you for watching Quote and Scripture. Scripture that inspires, quotes that uplift. If this message encouraged you, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more truth from God's Word.